How can you or your team process society's relentless change and complexity and remain successful and happy? The key is to think about your thinking. The human brain is one of the wonders of the world. Its potential is unlimited. In fact, thinking is your brain's process of making sense of the world. Have you ever wondered, how is that managers who attend a training session together with a single trainer and a common program of instruction can come away with totally opposite judgments and retain different elements of the program for their individual careers and jobs? How about this one, a messy desk? It drives some people crazy and inspire doing with it. Another set of interesting questions which you may ask: why relationship breaks down? Why they can't get your point right away, while other people never understand you? These are all too real. One of the simple ways to decode others without exhausting yourself is called whole brain thinking. This theory provides the roadmap for your thinking journey. It will make you more effective in working in the organization. It could bring clarity on the world around you. It stretches your thinking to make you more present, effective, and engaging. Whole brain thinking is developed by Ned Herman. It divides the brain into 4 quadrants. Each quadrant represents a different part of the brain. Quadrant A, which is manifested in the upper left part of the brain, which is represented in blue, the analytical or rational thinking. The second quadrant in green is practical thinking. This thinking can be manifested in the lower left part of our brain, while quadrant C in red is called relational thinking. And lastly, in the upper right part of the brain in yellow is experimental thinking. Let's start with quadrant A, the rational thinking or the analyzed thinking style. This quadrant prefers a cognitive and rational approach, the intelligent ones. When using this thinking style, you'd be likely to approach problem solving in a logical manner and to take accounts of facts, figures, statistics, and other tangibles. You'd prefer conclusions that are backed up by supporting data or by examples of precedent. You would like approaches that reduce the complex to the simple, the unclear to clear. Your critical evaluation of ideas occurs in this quadrant. Decisions or judgments are explained and justified by quadrant A thinking, the rational thinking. Quadrant B is the practical thinking or the organized thinking style. This quadrant likes structure in a practical and procedural sense. A primary preference here would suggest you have a natural inclination towards organization, reliability, efficiency, and order. Of course, tasks might frequently be prioritized and tackle them in a systematic and sequential manner and complete them. Time is often managed effectively since it is organized. This quadrant is mindful of logistical constraints and attentive to details. Skills of this quadrant includes operational planning and the implementation of projects. People with this kind of thinking style dislike chaos and confusion and have considerable skill and satisfaction in making order out of such situation. Equally, administration and maintenance are smoothly handled. Characteristics are caution, control, and conservatism. The third quadrant, quadrant C, is relational thinking or the personalized thinking style. A primary preference in this quadrant would suggest you are naturally in tune with and sensitive to others' needs, moods, attitudes, atmosphere, or energy level. There is usually an attraction to people, related tasks, plus an ability to relate to others and express yourself easily. Characteristics may include good interpersonal skills with an awareness of the feelings of others, ease of communication, and often skills in teaching or training, facilitation, or group leadership. Sensory intuition, in the form of gut feelings or hunches, may be given credence. Spiritual awareness and musical interest are largely C quadrant features. People with preferences in this quadrant may be emotional and highly sensitive. Finally, you have quadrant D, the experimental thinking or strategize. With a D quadrant preference, you can usually handle several mental inputs simultaneously. You can also make rapid connections and feel more comfortable with abstract concepts. Various facets are assessed simultaneously. Even mental jigsaws, they are made and conclusions are reached in a spontaneous rather than a studied manner. Such operating could be called intuitive in an intellectual sense. Lateral thinking takes place in this mode also and inspires imaginative, innovative, and take note, original ideas. This quadrant could be described as the catalyst for the creative process. In this mode, you welcome positive change and may have an inclination towards adventure, experimentation, and risk. In an organization, communication is very important. Communication is easiest between people who have similar preferences. They speak the same language. Communication is quite easy when people share preferences in the same mode. Left, A and B, or right, C and D. When people share preferences in the upper A and D, or lower B and C, they may find common ground for communication. Most challenging may be communication between those who have preferences in diametrically opposing quadrants. Now, we become conscious of our own mental preferences and thinking styles. This understanding allows us to be more at ease with ourselves and more perceptive and effective with people who think differently. For example, left mode dominant people may feel more at ease in a technical job, one that requires organization, operational planning, and administration. Those with more left mode preferences would rather reason logically. They prefer to study verified facts and adopt a systematic approach. They would tend to avoid fantasy and resist going off on a tangent. They remain focused, rational, and rigorous. On the other hand, right mode dominant people tend to enjoy new ideas and interpersonal involvement. They may communicate symbolically rather than by pure reason. They may think in pictures rather than words. Abstract concepts and hypothetical issues are interesting to the right brain dominant people. Whole brain thinking gives us a lot of benefits. It improves customer responsiveness. It leads to accurate decision making. It fosters problem solving. It increases team productivity. And it acquires more focused and flexible environment. To effectively put strategies based on whole brain thinking into practice, organizations usually go through 4 distinct stages of application. Stage 1, individual or team awareness of thinking preferences. Stage 2, whole brain strategy adoption by a group to meet a specific goal. Stage 3, broad adoption of the whole brain approach across a division. And stage 4, organizational transformation with whole brain thinking practiced throughout the entire organization. To do stage 1, the individual or team awareness of thinking preferences, we are advised to use the HBDI, Individual Thinking Preference Assessment, to develop employees' understanding of themselves and others. The HPDI model is more complex because it is based on scientific research conducted specifically on thinking styles and thus has applicability beyond individual profiling. The self-awareness gained from thinking preference assessments can build self-esteem and can greatly enhance performance. Many companies have gone further and applied whole brain thinking practices toward meeting a specific and measurable goal. For instance, your organization is in the process of implementing a work project or a program. You may hold several staff development workshops which employ the whole brain thinking at the project team leaders and members. Next, they may conduct an intensive one-day program solving session with facilitators specifically to explore ways to solve the problem margins and meet the needs. Cross-functional teams from planning, generating ideas, making a plan, organizing and delivering the operations may split into 4 small groups to apply whole brain thinking principles toward generation of ideas to solve the problem. On the third stage, job mastery is the goal. This stage provides support for project representatives to understand the demands of their job, including the different customer thinking styles they'd encounter on the job. Moreover, it creates environment that supports and reinforces learning. And the last stage, an organizational culture dedicated to whole brain thinking requires sensitivity to human needs so managers can anticipate and avert internal and external problems. Whole brain practices must be integrated into every area of operations, from training to operations to overall development, so that it truly becomes an operating philosophy of the organization. Sustaining such a culture requires ongoing efforts to communicate with each other and with customers using the principles of whole brain thinking. And here are some of the key takeaways. People have markedly different ways that they perceive and assimilate information, make decisions, and solve problems. So, appreciation of and attention to these different thinking styles can literally change the way you do business with your workplace and your customers. They say no world at large. With whole brain thinking, teachers, learners, stakeholders, customers engaging with each other, building new diverse ideas, and turning them into real change and powerful results. With that, I thank you. Happy learning!